Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to a different little video. This was inspired, or a friendly challenge laid down by one of the best YouTubers out there. That's Daisuke Beppu, and please check out his channel. He has an amazing Criterion collection and other collections. He has a lot of Eureka, Masters of Cinema, 88 films and Arrow releases. But his main output is Criterion based, as he has just about all of them, which is very impressive. And in a reaction to one of his viewers' comments, how he got into films and how he got the collecting bug, and he then made a video of that and kind of suggested that other people could make their own videos. I don't know how interesting this one will be, but this is kind of how I got into films. Growing up, there was always kind of films that even before you kind of knew what a quote good film was or anything about filmmaking technique, that you loved. So one of those examples for me was probably The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, which obviously I love even more now, but even when I was young there was something about that film that was very special. And then as you kind of grow older, it's very much like music. I'm a big music collector as well, and you get to a certain age where you realise that music isn't just background. Music's a lot more important than that, and then you kind of go from band to band, and then you spread out different genres, whatever, and it's exactly the same with films. I probably, growing up in the UK, BBC Two, I think, one of the television channels, because back in my day there only was 3 television channels, if you can believe that. That shows you how old I am. BBC Two, usually around Christmas, would always have seasons of world cinema or film noirs. So that was pretty much my first exposure to people like Bergman, Kurosawa, Nicholas Ray, and countless others. Sadly, nowadays BBC Two doesn't seem to do that anymore, but that was really one of my first exposures to different kinds of films from different countries. And to me, films with subtitles was never a problem. I mean, people do speak about how they don't like films with subtitles because they can't read the subtitle and watch the film at the same time. But to me it just came naturally, just to follow the language and then follow what they were saying. That was never really an issue. And then one of I would say the biggest influence on me growing up was again BBC Two and a show called Movie Drome, which was always late night on a Sunday, and it was originally hosted by Alex Cox, director of Repo Man and The Walker, and an interesting chap. If you saw my random review of The Great Silence, he does a lovely intro to that on that release. because in fact on Moviedrome that was where I first saw The Great Silence, or The Big Silence as it was called then. So Moviedrome, again, first introduced by Alex Cox, and then later Mark Cousins, the documentary filmmaker. And they showed cult films, some foreign films, and a lot of those films that I now either have in my collection, or a lot of films that I really love, I first saw on Moviedrome. And there's still clips on YouTube of Alex Cox and Mark Cousins' intros to some films, which you should really check out because some of the intros are very good. My number one Michael Mann film, for example, if you watch my top 10 for that, that was a shameless plug. Manhunter, that was my first exposure of Manhunter, was on Moviedrome. My first exposure, like I say, of The Great Silence was on Moviedrome. My first viewing of The Parallax View, which is a film that I absolutely love, and again has featured on my films that should get a Criterion or Eureka or Arrow release. Society, which is a lovely wee film. Again, that was my first exposure, was on Moviedrome. And I think certainly reading the comments of people on those YouTube videos of Alex Cox introductions, there literally is a lot of people who were heavily influenced by Moviedrome. Mark Kermode did an interview, I think, with Alex Cox and Mark Cousins, separate interviews about Moviedrome and the influence it had. And they kind of, I think Mark Cousins said, in some ways it would be good for Moviedrome still to exist, but then in other ways it's not, because he doesn't like really telling people what they should watch. But for certainly in those days, video shops, for example, didn't have a lot of older films. They didn't have a lot of black and white films. They certainly didn't have a lot of foreign films. And Moviedrome was just a fantastic window into films that you'd never heard of, and were never on television. Obviously now with Sky Movies in the UK and whatever, you are exposed to a little bit more films, or a little different variety of films, but in general not foreign films, because again there's just something about subtitles that a lot of people are just put off with, which I've never understood.